Have you ever looked back at your childhood and realized that some of the struggles that you have today didn't actually start in adulthood? There were some things I just thought were part of my personality, only to realize that they came from something much deeper. For me, one of those things was growing up without a present father. As a child, I didn't fully understand what I was missing out on. Now that I'm older, I can see how that absence shaped parts of who I became as an adult. Yeah. Before we continue, I want to make something very clear. This is not a criticism of single mothers. My mom did an incredible job raising me, and I will forever be grateful to her. I also had amazing uncles and mentors who supported me all through. Today, I'm simply sharing my experience and some things I personally feel I carried into adulthood because my father wasn't present. One of the first things I think I carried into adulthood was my mother's burdens. I watched her trying to be everything at once. I saw her carry responsibilities that no one should have to carry alone. She had to be the mom and dad in my life. I saw stress. I saw exhaustion. I saw how financial pressure pushed her into the wall. And as a child, you start carrying those emotions too. So I realized I started growing up much faster than I should have. Like I didn't have that chance of kuwa tu mtoto. Instead of simply being a child, I was learning how to survive. You get to a point, you start feeling guilty for asking for things or becoming overly responsible at a very young age by trying to figure out ways to help make money. And now you're trying to solve adult problems. The second thing is probably one of those that affected me so deeply. I think many children without a present father quietly long for healthy fatherly love and affirmations. Not because they're not loved at home, but because there's a specific area in your heart that wonders, mtu anafeel aje, mtu anafeel aje. I remember sometimes looking at other kids, being with their dads, playing with their dads, and maybe ni sports day hivi ama parents day, unaona tu like some kids with their dads, and you're like, I wish I had that experience. I wish hata mimi ningekuwa na such experiences. It wasn't jealousy, it was like longing for an experience that you never had. As children grow older, that longing, why it doesn't disappear. You will always feel like you want your dad, but now you're a grown up, it's usually somewhere there too. Because even as an adult, sometimes I feel like I wish I had my dad present. I wish I had a dad. There's some things that happen ambazo zinanifanya na wish that my dad was present. This next point was probably one of the hardest for me to understand at a young age: rejection. I often found myself asking questions like, was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? Why wasn't I worth staying for? The heartbreaking part is that children rarely blame the parent. They usually blame themselves. You start like asking, like, why do I see him with other kids? Why not me? You even see him raising other people's kids, and you're like, why didn't he fight to be in my life? And kids don't have the emotional maturity to understand adult decisions. So sometimes you carry feelings of rejections that never even belonged to you in the first place. And then later in life, those feelings can become a constant need to like prove yourself, to constantly prove yourself to other people, to earn your love. You feel like you need to seek approval to feel accepted. Sometimes those feelings can even affect the relationships that we choose to have. Hence, my next point. Some people stay in unhealthy relationships not because they don't know that they're in unhealthy relationships or toxic relationships, but because they're terrified of repeating the same story they grew up with. And then they console themselves by saying, kwamba, at least my kids will grow up with both parents. Aki, that's a really bad place to be. That's a really bad spot to be. That's a really, really bad spot to be. And no one should be stuck in a toxic relationship because of that, or a marriage that is not working because of that. My other point is that growing up watching one parent do everything can put you into survival mode. After a painful separation or betrayal, a parent may become more guarded, emotionally distant, or quick to put up walls. Not because they're bad people, but because they're trying to protect themselves from being hurt again. You're trying to guard your heart from being hurt again. As children, we watch that, we learn from it, and sometimes, without even realizing it, point, we begin responding to people around us the same way. So we become overly independent, and then we struggle to let people into our lives because you don't want to be hurt like mom. So we assume we have to be tough all the time. Because that's what strength looked like growing up. This isn't me blaming my mom. If anything, I understand why she became protective. She had been through a lot. But as children, we don't just hear what our parents tell us. We watch how they respond to life, and sometimes we carry those responses into adulthood without like realizing it. Finally, as a girl, one thing I sometimes felt I missed out on was a sense of protection. Not because women aren't like strong, we are. And my mom was a really strong woman. But there's something comforting about knowing a loving father is standing behind you. Kuna ile tu father figure that your dad is there with you. There are some things that you need your dad to be there for. And when he's not there, you don't feel fully protected. If you've listened this far, I hope you hear this more than anything else. Growing up without a father does not mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're destined to repeat the same patterns. Yes, there are things that you may have missed out on, but there are also things that we can choose to build. Healing is possible. Healthy relationships are possible. You can become the partner you wish you'd seen. You can become the parent you wish you'd had. And to all the single mothers out there, thank you so much. To my mom, thank you so much. Thank you for your love, sacrifice, and the strength that you pour into your children matters more than you know. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story in the comment section. What is one lesson that you've learned from your childhood that still shapes you today? Let's have a respectful conversation. Thank you so much for spending this morning with me, and see you in the next Morning Talks with Rachel. Don't forget to subscribe. I love you guys.